Hello, everyone. Women owned businesses now represent 39.4% of the US economy. However, recent shifts in federal policy have introduced uncertainty to what was dedicated funding for women owned business owners and affirmative action programs that have historically supported women owned small business growth. So, for those unfamiliar with how government supports entrepreneurs, especially from those underrepresented communities, can you tell me what are some of the more critical federal, state, or local programs that have shaped the growth of women owned businesses over the past decade?
Absolutely. I'm going to touch on more on the federal side of things. I was past
Okay.
chair of the National Women's Business Council, which was the catalyst of a lot of these things that happened. NWBC came about in 1988 when women couldn't even get loans without a male co-signer, and that was in 1988. So a lot
Not
of
that long ago, Sima, right?
not that
Not that
long
long
ago, we
ago.
all remember.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of things have happened positively since then, and one of them was the start of women business centers. We have right now 160 of them, and in 2025, and they're centers where you can go to and to get all kinds of help from starting a business, how to apply for grants, and get any kind of help you want. There are other programs that are really helpful in early stage research and development, and they're called SBIR and STTR grants. And the best thing is that you get funding without getting any kind of dilution when you want to do very, research centric, where you may not get money from private individuals. And of course, the government contracting procurement side of things, we have the WOSB program that puts aside 5% of federal contracting that can go to women only businesses, and women need to get certification for that. We haven't reached completely the 5%, but in the past, it's been just incredible help for women owned businesses. There are other programs like the Hub Zone or the 8A that also help with set asides, but the WOSB program is specifically for women owned businesses. And uh, I think it's there's also mentorship program like SCORE that has really done a lot to help people. If you don't know what you're doing, it really helps you do that under SBA. We also have SBA backed loans that concentrate on microloans or undeserved or underrepresented communities. So I'm just going really fast on it, but that's what has been available, and it has been really helpful.
So, Seema, how widespread in terms of knowledge and adoption are these programs before I go to Nicole?
So
Uh,
there is many people still don't know about them. So I think that's one of the things that we want to do is, you need to have a lot more outreach for people to know, because the services are there, the resources are there. Also, when you apply for the government contracting, it's not easy. What the SBA did recently under the Biden administration is that they did a one-stop shop application for all their government contracting. And I think that's really helpful. And what I would suggest is that if there were state, local, and federal government could come together and make that whole process easier, it would be a lot easier. But even with that, we have 14 million small businesses that employ 12.9 million people. So there is a lot of opportunity for growth. And but again, we need money to make sure that people know about these programmings and make sure that we're supporting those programs.
I want to distinguish myself on this panel in two ways. One, to say what I currently do is much more advocacy about a lot of these programs,
mhm.
both with some young group of cohort of women who we work with through the Black Girl Magic Network. Something that I founded of senior women who either had been in federal affairs or who working in government affairs now, but several of them are looking to do entrepreneurial endeavors separately. And I work with a number of clients that are actually trying to incentivize women to
Hmm.
do, whether it's franchises or other types of entrepreneurial endeavors. So I work with them. But one thing that even Mignon, I don't know if you know, is that I am actually an entrepreneur and I own a small business. I own a small childcare center in Newport News, Virginia. This was our family owned, my family's business, my mother's business. And even when you talked about needing to have a man in 1988, well, when my mom established the Garden of Children in 1969, my mother and father actually had to go and find white
Wow.
counterparts to sign with them in order to start the business.
So
So
not
it
only
wasn't
was
even
it yeah, not even a gender thing, it was another layer in terms of your family, in terms of obstacles.
correct. So there were two couples, and one was white, one was black. We bought them together. They grew it, and then they separated them back out over time. So, these issues are systemic. They've been around for a really long time. And the reason why the federal government did invest in entrepreneurship in this way, I think those reasons are all still there today, right? Even though we can go get a loan, you peel that onion back and you find the layers, the barriers to entry, whether it is how much the banks or an investor is looking for you to bring to the table, how fast can you repay them, like they fill those gaps for you. And for a lot of women, and I think the question that you asked at the end is, how do we get more women to know and to sign up for these programs? So, the other thing I would just mention is, again, from the advocacy piece, if we were having this discussion 8 months ago or 10 months ago under the Biden administration, we had a better picture of what the government is able to offer. We're now in a different administration, and this administration is reshaping the role of government and the role of government in helping entrepreneurs. So we're not really sure where this reshaping of government is actually going to end up. So a lot of what Sima and I are talking about are the things that we know were available and that did help. And it's important to know the things that actually did help so that we can go and advocate for those again if they are cut or they're removed from whether it's SBA or the Office on Women. So again, it is important to really understand your business, what's available. And a lot of these programs at the federal level were mimicked at the state and local level too. So even though we're talking about them at the federal level and don't know if they're still going to be there or funded, you can look for similar programs at the state and local level.
How do we level the playing field when things have gotten reconfigured and are evolving in ways that have been different over the past several decades, to be honest with you?
I mean, look, what Nicole said is correct. It is so important to have the public support and investment because it also gives credibility to the businesses that are there. So we need to make
Mhm.
sure that we emphasize the importance of WBCs and this program and making sure that they stay because people need that. And especially within the lending environment, women have a much harder time to secure funding because one,
Mhm.
they end up going to their friends or their family, or they don't know what's out there. And the criterias that the big bank look at are not necessarily what is there. So that's why CDFIs are so important. And the fact that the federal government gives grants and supports the CDFIs is making sure that those stay because those are just really, really important to the businesses that we're talking about. There's also SBA lending programs like the microloan businesses that are like $50,000 or the 7A, and those are SBA backed loans. So you go to a regular bank, but they feel comfortable because there's the federal government backing them up. Just making sure that those programs stay because there are a lot of predatory lending practices that people don't know, and knowing to go which ones to go to is just really, really, really important.
And a lot of people don't know, they think everything is loans, but I just want to really
Right.
underscore the grant aspect, because that grant aspect, and I remember writing a lot of these bills when I worked on the Ways and Means Committee with Mr. Jefferson, but it is that funding, that it could be that bridge funding, that is that grant that gets you to that next place, so that you can do the sort of proof in the pudding for the next investor or for that bank loan. So those grants are really important, whether they're micro grants or whatever. And that was a very integral role that the government, whether it's state, local, or federal, can do. And there are a lot of these incubators that have grant programs associated with them.
Sima, what would you say?
So we
And what
did
would
a
you add?
research at NWBC on rural communities, and there's definitely a gap of resources there. There aren't enough WBCs. Uh, and a lot of and getting funding, it is very difficult for rural women in going and getting some level of funding. So making sure that there are CDFI, making sure that there are WBCs, and a very basic thing, making sure there's broadband, like a lot
Mm,
of the rural communities don't have
Sure.
broadband, and what are you going to do about that? So with rural women entrepreneurs, there's an extra layer of difficulty that kicks in addition to everything else that's there. And a lot of them try to make a go of it by themselves, and making sure that they know that these resources are available. So again, there should be a level of coordination within the federal government, and federal government down with local and state, so that there's more access to these resources, whether it's getting loans, whether it's applying to these grants. As I said, it's difficult. Applying for these loans is difficult. So they need some level of technical assistance, and that's where WBCs come into.
So Nicole,
So
if you will continue on, with that in terms of some of the things that you've seen that have worked that you would hope would scale, and what would you advise the administration to do on this very critical topic?
Well, I think that, Sima talked a lot about the WBCs, and the Biden administration put a lot of them in historic areas. Like for the first time, they partnered through some of the HBCUs, which were a lot in rural communities. They set up one in historic Greenwood community in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where the Black Wall Street district was. So there are some in some of those big hubs. But I think that the one hack, if I'm going to give one that I'm not going to gatekeep, to use the Gen Z vernacular, is to find places where they match women. And so if you
Ah,
have five small women, some of these incubators and some of these organizations that have public and private partnerships along with them, they match people, so that if you are one micro entrepreneur, maybe there's five of you and you have complementary services, you get together and apply for the grant together. That's the
mm,
hack. And a lot of the nonprofit partners to the federal government do that. You could partner up and still present a United Face and get that contract or get that grant with the assistance of federal government. So I just want to remind the women on this call that you are not alone. And I think we don't think about how to harness our networking and our prowess the way sometimes that bigger entities or men do, whether that was traditionally over their golf course. And they go, oh, okay, we can pitch together. But I
right.
think it's really important for women to think we can get together and do that as well.
I wanted to also add that, women, whether being rural or not, they need to be very proactive. The new Wells
Say that
Fargo,
again, please. Say that
3.3
again, please.
3.3 trillion to the economy.
That
All
part.
things being equal, and this is a research from Wells Fargo, they could contribute 10.2 trillion to the economy. I mean, this is just put your. I mean, I always like wrap my head around that number. So you have
Right,
to look at it as an opportunity for growth for everyone. Like this is somewhere that everybody can make money and the economy can do fantastic. You know,
right,
and so you have to look at it that way, which is a very important lens. And we did research that women STEM entrepreneurs had a better credit risk profile than men did. So
right.
invest in them. It's really making sure that for women, don't be shy. Go out there, uh, you know, just be proactive for yourself. One of the things that we're doing is that it is very hard to find out what resources are out there. And data is very important because people need those numbers to show that, women will be profitable. Women will help you.
Go to the local, to start with the local chamber of commerce, and see what they have available. Go to the town hall on business development and see what the mayor is doing, what's available, and see who's in the room. Network in that room, because it's just very important. So those are the ABCs that I have in terms of a call to action.
Miss Nicole Venable, Miss Sima Ladjevardian. I was a little better with that. I want to thank you so much for your time and valuable insights.
Such an honor being here. Thank you.
My
Absolute
pleasure.
honor. Thank you so much, Mignon. Sima, it was a pleasure to serve with you on this
Absolutely.
panel.
Thank you.
Goodbye for now.
Thank you.